when I checked in the morning of the 5th, it took them 15 minutes to gear up, which is full suits, hazmat gear, the whole nine yards.
Just to come see you.
Just to walk in the room to address whatever was going on with me. So I coded, I'm done, if they weren't ready.
If someone has a problem with substance use disorder, please call One Call Placement. That's 888-831-1581. And if we can't help you, we'll make a referral to someone who can. One Call Placement is affiliated with Carrera Treatment, Wellness and Spa and One Method Treatment Centers.
Today's guest on the show is Gregg Garfield. He was patient 0 at the very beginning of COVID. But to open the show today, I just wanted to say one thing about the anniversary of COVID coming up. It's 6 years now. There is no anniversary, but the anniversary in my mind is March 11th. And that's because there was a guy by the name of Adam Silver that saved thousands and thousands of lives on that day. He's the commissioner of the National Basketball Association. And he halted the league on March 11th. What followed was every university, every sports league, the whole world shut down. He saved thousands and thousands of lives. And let's not rewrite history. Although the variants got weaker and weaker and weaker, and today we'd rather have COVID than a bee sting, okay? It wasn't that way at the beginning. The first variant was killing everybody. And anyway, thank you, Adam Silver. All right, let's get going. In 2020, Gregg Garfield was the first COVID patient at Providence St. Joseph Hospital in Burbank, California. Doctors said he had a 1% chance to live. He spent a month on a ventilator, over 60 days in the hospital, lost most of his fingers and toes, and still got back on skis that same year. Gregg built Gregg's Village and runs Chip-In, giving back to nonprofits with every transaction. Today, we talk survival, mindset, and building your team before the storm. What's up, Gregg?
How are you, bud?
Yeah. So little transparency, right? Gregg and I went to high school together, and you're a very fit guy. Like, I look fit. Okay. But if I walk up 2 flights of stairs, I'm gassed, right? You're doing double diamond runs, skiing half the year, traveling all over the world to do it. So your lungs are like iron lungs. So when you were on a ventilator, everyone who knows you, right? Me, Adam, Chris, everybody scared to death. Because if it's putting you on a ventilator, we're all dead. Right? And this is the very first COVID case in LA.
Correct.
Right? So you went with a bunch of buddies to the Italian Alps. Tell me about the story and how it happened. Just lay it all out for me.
Yeah. So every year we go on a guys trip. It's put on by my friend's dad, and 13 guys were this trip. It's the second time going back to Val Gardena, Italy, skiing the Dolomites. Always really excited to do that. Mm-hmm. Got there on February 22nd, 2020, and I got a call from AJ, my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance. I get a call from AJ, and she says, are you aware of this thing called the coronavirus? It's where you are in Italy. Like, we're not worried about it. We're all athletes. We're outdoors. We're specifically around us, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So we didn't really have too much of a worry. So I said, she goes, be careful, keep an eye out. And turns out 3 days in, we all started getting flu-like symptoms. So I was a little sicker than a couple of the other guys. I laid up in my room for a couple of days, and specifically because I was supposed to come back on March 1st, and then I'm leaving on the 4th for a helicopter skiing trip. So I wanted to get better. And 3 of the guys that live in Sweden went home a couple of days early. One guy checked into the hospital, was sent home with the flu. So we supposedly had the flu at this point. So we weren't worried about it. So we're leaving Val Gardena, leaving Italy through Munich. The night before we hop on a plane, our friend Peter checked into the hospital the night before.
Oh, hold on. I just want to, so you guys went from this place to that place. You guys basically infected the entire planet.
No. No.
Sorry.
Not really.
Uh-huh.
The great part about what happened to us, we were very isolated. And so the virus was transferring from all these people. From the Chinese came into Italy from, I believe, from the Hasmat business.
Right.
And by the way, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So it was going around, but nobody really had any idea of exactly what this was. So in Munich, my friend Peter checked into the hospital the night before we were leaving for back to LA. So we wake up in the morning, we heard he checked into the hospital with double pneumonia. He misses our flight. So 3/4 of the way through the flight. By the way, when we got on the plane, there was no worry whatsoever. There was nobody checking people or anything. It was way before anything was.
This was in January.
February. This was actually February 29th.
Oh, wow. So this is right before, because didn't Adam Silver postpone the NBA season, I think on March 11th or March 13th or March 11th, I remember. March. Yeah, that guy saved millions of lives. Go on.
Absolutely. So the morning of the 1st, we're leaving.
I'm sorry, not millions. He said he saved countless lives that we'll never know how many he saved. But remember when he did that, and then college football was postponed, and this one was postponed, and he's the one that had the intestinal fortitude to stop that thing.
At that particular time, I was in a coma, so I had no idea what was going on there.
Okay, we're going to get to the coma. So back to Munich.
So we get on the flight. 3/4 of the way through the flight, we get a text message from Peter saying that he tested positive for COVID. So we're about 3/4 of the way through the flight, about to land in LA.
And everyone on the plane's infected. It's not your fault, dude.
Who knows?
Right.
I mean, who knows what's going on?
Right.
I mean, we're all sick.
Right.
We land, get off the plane. I called AJ, don't come to my house, obviously. I called my doctor, who called the CDC. They sent a Hasmat team to my house, picked me up, took me to their office in Pacoima. There was no random testing back then. Tested me 24 hours later. I tested positive. Quarantined myself in the house. That was on March 2nd. March 4th, I was on the phone with a buddy of mine who called another friend that's a retired physician, because I was out of my mind. I'm that person that knows all the details. And he was asking me, he goes, who picked you up? I don't know. Where did you go? Who was testing you? Blah, blah, blah.
So you couldn't think.
I was so brain fogged. It was crazy. I just didn't have any understanding really what was going on. And he said to me, he goes, dude, you need to go to the hospital. And I was pushing back. So he gets my friend on the phone, our friend John, the physician. And he started calling around to all the hospitals. UCLA, Cedars, St. John's.
Nobody would take you.
Nobody would take me. They said, go to the emergency room. We're not ready for a COVID patient. St. Joe's in Burbank was the only one. Well, if you go to the emergency room, I'm COVID positive. You infect everybody. So that wasn't an option.
That's right.
So St. Joe's in Burbank was the only hospital ready with an inflow room.
With a what?
An inflow room. It's a sealed room. You go in. When I checked in the morning of the 5th, it took them 15 minutes to gear up, which is full suits, hazmat gear, the whole 9 yards.
Just to come see you.
Just to walk in the room to address whatever was going on with me. So I coded, I'm done, if they weren't ready. So it was a pretty crazy.
What's coded?
Flatline.
Okay. So if you flatlined before they were dressed, you're finished.
I'm done.
Got it. Okay. So you can't, you were How long were you in Italy? From what date to what date?
So we were there the 22nd to the 29th.
Okay.
Or came back on the 1st.
Okay.
On March
So, but the 29th you had it because you were sick.
I was mid.
Give me the date roughly.
25th, 26th.
Okay. So if you're from the 25th, you've got 5 and then you came in on the 5th.
I got into the hospital on March 5th. Correct.
Okay. So that's 10 days in. Mm-hmm. So you're suffering from 10 days and you're not yet on a ventilator.
Nope. I got put on a ventilator. So I got admitted to the hospital on the 5th. On March 7th, they came in and said, your oxygen saturation is so low, we have to intubate you. I have no idea what that means.
Me neither.
At that particular time.
Me neither.
So I call AJ and said, I'm going to be offline for a couple days. And at that point,
that's all you told her.
Oh, that's all I knew. And I went into a medically induced coma for the next 31 days. And everything under the sun happened to me, from MRSA, sepsis, a pulmonary embolism, ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. I had blood clots throughout my body. I had collapsed lungs 4 different times. I was 2 days shy on going on ECMO, which is an iron lung. I was in bad shape. I should not be here, medically speaking. And today they literally don't know why I survived. So on that, prior to that 48 hours, that next day, they had a meeting. They brought the family in and they said, if he doesn't change within 24 hours, you'll probably want to start saying your goodbyes right now. And on that next day, everything started turning and I started getting better. And they have no concept of why. So firmly, I believe it's number one, because I was a very incredibly healthy person.
What did re-entry feel like? Let me see your hands first. Okay. You didn't lose some of them. You lost parts of all of them.
I lost all my fingers on my right hand, half my thumb, and half the fingers on my left hand, and just the tip of my thumb. So at your middle knuckle, that's where I lost all the fingers.
Of this too, baby.
Yeah, that's the middle knuckle.
That's the middle knuckle. Mm-hmm. So you lost the knuckles.
What happened with this is once I got out of the hospital, I was put on what they call pressors, which forces your blood to your motor organs for survival. I was also, I had organ failure. I was put on 24-hour dialysis. My kidneys were failing. I was in bad shape, without a doubt. So they put me on pressors. It forces your blood to your vital organs for survival, compromises your extremities. My fingers went black. A couple of my toes went black. They were more worried about saving my life than saving my fingers and toes.
For sure.
Made the right decision.
Of course.
Without a doubt. So coming out of the hospital, I then went to a couple specialists, a couple hand surgeons, to really figure out exactly what was going on. And the guy that we chose is a Dr. David Culber out of Cedars. Amazing hand surgeon. And he said to me, he goes, we're going to go in, it's going to check it out and save whatever we can and take off whatever's dead. So I challenged him to say, I need to be back on skis by the end of 2020. And he thought I was batshit nuts. I was barely able to walk when I got out of the hospital.
Right.
I had to learn how to eat, chew, swallow.
Why? Because you were on the incubator for so long?
I was intubated for 31 days. I lost over 50 pounds. Uh-huh. Everything atrophied. So I went in at 197. I came out at 147. I looked like a kid from Auschwitz.
Right.
I could barely, when I was going through physical therapy, I was able to only walk 3 steps. That was like running a marathon. And I was hooked up to so many tubes. I was on.
Why did you have to learn to rewalk? Because of the toes?
No, because of my muscle. Everything atrophied.
Oh, so it was just, right. But how fast did it come back?
I took 2 weeks for me to get into rehab and then another 2 weeks in rehab to be able to walk out of the hospital. And the first 2 weeks was to be able to get up and walk across the road. I was on a trach. I was hooked up to all these tubes, a life support.
So you're pushing the whole thing as you're walking.
I was carrying tubes around with me. What motivated me, and I really realized this it's setting realistic goals for yourself. You have micro goals, but we go to macro goals. It's really focusing on what's achievable now.
Okay. So tell me what that looked like.
To walk 3 steps was next to impossible for me, but I didn't want to take a shit in a bedpan again. That was 15 steps across the room to get into the bathroom. I kicked my physical therapist out of the room multiple times because I was exhausted. And AJ looked at me and said, you gotta get them back in here and keep going, because you have to be able to walk across that room to get into rehab to get you out of the hospital. So I said to her, I didn't want to go to the bathroom in that bedpan again. I said, get him back in here. He goes, Greg, that's 15 steps across the room. I go get him back in here. So I made the 15 steps and I was able to go to the bathroom. And that was the highlight of that journey to get out of that hospital. She actually was saying to me, I want to wheel you out into the atrium to get fresh air. I said, babe, I'm going to walk out of this hospital across that threshold once. And when I walk over that threshold, I'm not coming back in. So my focus was to get and do the work, get busy to do the work to get to be able to walk out of that hospital.
How was your mental health during this period of time?
Great. It was really great.
Because you were just going to run through that wall. You weren't going to, you were just on fire to get well.
Yes. And it helped me with my village, and you all took a part in this. The love that I received from everybody, and it came from a few hundred of my closest friends to thousands nationwide.
Right.
Because my story went worldwide.
That's right.
There was so much love and support that I did not want to fail for them as well. First and foremost for myself.
Right.
But I didn't want to fail for them.
It's amazing how many people loved you up when you had this. I got probably 25 calls and we hadn't seen each other in 30 years.
Yeah, true.
Everybody from school.
Yeah.
Everybody was praying for you.
And it worked. Whatever it did, it worked.
Okay. So you had 9 surgeries in 8 months, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Getting back on the mountain. When you're going up the chairlift, okay, what's going through your mind?
Oh man, it started when I first carried my skis out and just stepped into the skis right on the deck. There were tears flowing because there was a slight part of me that didn't think I was getting there because of the struggles that I was going through.
Right.
There was always that little bird in the back that's saying that. I didn't listen too much to it, but it was always there. I wasn't blinded by the possibilities that wouldn't happen. When I was going up, it was the most freeing feeling ever because it was getting back to reality, getting back to what I found as like my foundation.
Are you as good a skier now as you were before COVID?
Without a doubt.
For sure.
100%.
Uh-huh. You can hold the pulse?
So for the first 4.5 years, I skied with one pole and perfected it.
Uh-huh.
I skied everything I did before. It was definitely a little challenging balance-wise, but I had to put myself in certain positions to really meet my expectations for myself. This past year, I found an adaptive piece that was able to put a pole in my right hand, and it took everything to the next level.
You didn't want to make a piece for yourself?
I tried to figure it out.
Uh-huh.
And Glenn Plake, I don't know if you know who he is. He's one of the innovators of extreme skiing and on all the Warren Miller films, the guy that had the mohawk. Friend of mine in Mammoth, and he's also an engineer, and he was trying to put something together for me. And there's a couple people that actually were trying to figure a couple things out. And then another buddy of mine put me in touch with somebody at Disabled Sports up in Mammoth. And they had a product that's already ready to go. So I didn't take the time to research it because I didn't want to figure it out. I just wanted to do it on my own.
Right.
When I put that pull in my right hand, everything clicked, and I'm 110% on skis.
How many toes do you got still?
Oh, I just lost the tips of 3 of my toes on my right foot, just behind the toenail. So not even an issue.
So it's not. So you're totally fine.
100%.
So when you were walking, it was about the atrophy. It wasn't about.
Well, I also had something called a peroneal neuropathy. When I was put on, when I was in sedation, under sedation, they put compression sleeves on my legs for blood clotting, and it pinched my peroneal nerve on the right side of my knee. And what that did was it eliminated my foot to retract, the ability to retract. Think of it as putting pressure on your gas pedal, but not being able to pull your foot off of your gas pedal. So there was a 90+% chance that my peroneal nerve would heal, but there was also a chance that it wouldn't. And it took about 6 months, and all of a sudden it came back. I had to walk around with a plate in my shoe, which was hooked on like a shin guard, which loads up the foot and then really it pushes it back so that I could walk with a normal gait. Once that healed, game on.
Good for you, man. Yeah. You know what I want to talk about next? I want to talk about the support you received from your girlfriend, who is now your fiance. Yeah. Because I heard that she was the most extraordinary woman.
Without a doubt.
Okay. Tell me how that support looked and how that brought you guys closer, and if there was any challenges during the part. Like, so for example, you could be forgiven for being mean or short with people during this period of time. I assume that happened a couple times.
I mean, look, we all slip and fall. We all have moments. I always say that through this journey, I never had a bad day, ever. I had bad moments, but I never had a bad day. So
you're like my grandpa. You're like everyone's grandpa. You're like, seriously, you remind me of our greatest generation, our grandparents.
That's an honor.
This is how our grandparents would have behaved. It wouldn't have been like, oh, I'm depressed, or, oh, I'm a victim, or any of that. They would have dusted themselves off and ran right through that wall. Okay. So tell me about AJ. Tell me how she supported you through this process.
So AJ and I were only together for 18 months when this happened.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was fresh. We were not looking we weren't each other's person in the very beginning. But we had so much fun together because we both were just fresh out of relationships that we weren't looking for another relationship. But we met because she was at a friend of mine's restaurant, who a friend of mine called me and actually said, I found your girl. I'm like, okay. So I Facebook stalked her.
Good.
No interest in me at all.
Right.
And then it turned out that she, another friend of hers actually gave me the green light of me being a good guy. And then we started dating. And between the two of us, we just had a lot of fun together. And it wasn't, I wasn't looking for somebody at that point, but I found somebody that was really special. And this was the ultimate test. And when I was put in the hospital and put under sedation, my sister, who lives up north in Palo Alto, moved in with AJ. And the two of them, obviously they had met, sporadically at certain family dinners and whatnot. But the two of them became sisters. And they quarterbacked with my medical team and were the liaison between me in the hospital and the world, my village first and foremost.
What's the village?
My friends and family.
Okay.
So we call them the village.
Good.
And that's kind of a incredible, meaningful thing in my heart.
Am I in the village? Because you need a village idiot.
You're in the we're all village idiots, my friend.
Okay, go on.
She was there. Everybody was in shock at how she was on point, giving updates 4 times a day to our village.
That's who we were getting the updates from. I was getting them from Tracy, and Tracy was getting them from AJ.
Yeah. Yes.
We all went to high school together, folks. Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they kept everybody abreast of my situation, from having the most incredibly successful moments to 15 minutes later, it was, my blood pressure would crash and I would code flatline. I died 4 different times on the table.
Did you see anything?
Didn't see it. Well, it's not that I didn't see something. What I did see was I had, I believe it was when I was coming out of sedation. Mm-hmm. I was on so many freaking drugs, that I was in different places, man. I was in Utah. I was in Vegas. I was in our buddy Strauss's house. I'm the Richard's kid's godfather. Uh-huh. So I was in his extra room where my night nurse was with me, and I was hanging out there. And that night he let a couple of his friends in. The nurse let a couple of his friends in, and they killed Richard and my goddaughter. That didn't happen, but I was going through this ICU psychosis when I was coming to. I was losing my shit. And I was a mess.
Did you know in that moment, like, you aren't a drug addict?
No.
Okay. Like, when I was on drugs, and if we overshot the mark, we knew that we were going insane in that moment. Mm-hmm. And instead of panicking, we just leaned into it. Is that kind of how you did it? Or
no, I was the opposite, because I was coming off all the drugs. So I wasn't in sedation anymore. And I was wanting to rip somebody's head off, but my fingers were all decayed. I mean, I couldn't do anything. I was on life support, man. I was strapped down, for Christ's sake. I actually saw one of the nurses. So I thought this nurse was put away. And
what do you mean put away?
In jail.
A nurse?
What I thought.
Oh, when you were hallucinating. I was
hallucinating.
Right.
So I woke up one night, or one afternoon, and they were doing the change of the guard, so to speak, with the nurses. And I saw the guy walk by, and I'm like, oh my God, he's out of jail. And I freaked out, and I called one of the nurses in, and he comes out, call 911 and blah, blah, blah. And they were trying to calm me down, and I was just losing my shit. Well, if you recall, nobody was allowed in the hospital.
That's right.
When AJ and my sister were allowed in the hospital on my birthday on April 16th. And that was right when I was coming around. I think I woke up on the 12th. And they were allowed in the hospital. And this was right when I was going through all my psychotic behavior. And I snapped out of it the day AJ got there, and AJ walked over to me, and I said, "How's Allison, Richard's wife?" And she goes, "She's fine." I'm like, "What do you mean she's fine? Her husband and her daughter are dead." She goes, "What are you talking about? I just talked to him this morning." And I literally snapped out of it. And my mental state was just from disarray to focused at that particular time. And the administration looked at AJ and said, "We're going to allow you to come in every single day, because his mental health is just as important as his physical health. And we need to get him out of the hospital." So she was allowed to be in the hospital every day, and she was there every single day for 30 days.
Did she take, this is in April, and the vaccines were available in December. Mm-hmm. When did she take the vaccine?
Right when it was available. The day we both did.
In January. Well, you probably got it in December.
Nope. Whenever it came due. So we both were able to get it at the same time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Because I was thinking, you just went through something horrific, mm-hmm. and she wasn't afraid. She went into the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
That woman really loves you, man.
She's a beast. this is really funny. It was a really funny story. So when I checked into the hospital, well, prior to checking in, I had to have my dog get taken care of because my dog Bear is a 90-pound half Newfoundland, half Lab. I'm a huge dog person. She was like my kid. And at the time she was crate trained. So I was calling around, but this is before I was even thinking about going to the hospital. I was calling around to get her taken care of if that was the case, and nobody would take care of her, obviously, because everybody thought that COVID was living on the fur. Remember, we were wiping down her groceries.
Yeah.
All that was that crazy moment. So I called the CDC, I called the animal control, I called my dog trainer, I called my vet. I called everybody under the sun.
Nobody would take the dog.
Nobody would go to the dog. So,
what about friends and family?
Nobody would go to the dog. Everybody was fearful of the virus potentially was living on fur. So that the dog was exposed. So everybody was fearful and justifiably so. So the hospital, the administration, the nurses were willing to go get the dog out of the house. But the administration would not allow them to for liability reasons.
Uh-huh.
So AJ, because I locked the dog in her crate when I went to the hospital. She was in her crate for about 8 hours. And AJ said, I'm not letting this dog die. And she's like, I'll do it. So the hospital brought her in, gave her 2.5 hours of hazmat training, and sent her in full hazmat gear to my house. Now, here's a crazy story. My house is like Fort Knox because I had a burglary. My house was, you're familiar with Ring Video Doorbell, obviously, right?
Yeah. Where is the house?
It's in Studio City.
Okay.
So my house was the very first documented arrest Ring Video Doorbell ever had.
Dude, you're a first for everything. You're like
a little crazy.
You're like a unicorn. Go on.
It was a little crazy. So AJ, my house is like Fort Knox in the sense there's 8-foot fences, there's, alarm systems, the whole 9 yards. So I said to AJ, do me a favor, when you go to the house, don't lock yourself in the backyard because it's going to be very difficult for you to get out. So she had to go through the house, through the garage, get the dog out of the crate, and through the process of doing hazmat training, they had to she takes the dog outside in full hazmat gear, washes the dog with antiviral shampoo, goes to go back through the house and locked herself in the freaking backyard.
Right.
So she had to climb an 8-foot fence through a tree, and she's about as fit as you can get.
In a hazmat suit.
In hazmat gear.
Yeah.
Stripped butt naked in front of my house because you have to get all that stuff all out. And then got dressed, went back in the house and let the dog back in, and then took my dog to her house for the next 64 days while I was in the hospital. So she saved Bear's life, and in turn, Bear saved hers.
How did Bear save hers?
Mental. So she was that loving creature that she delved into because it was a part of me.
4 years later, what's the biggest change in how you live day to day and what drives you now?
I truly have always been this kind of a person, but I've always lived with the purpose of living life with the glass half full, without a doubt. It's emphasized tremendously. Every day I wake up in the morning, life is a gift.
You are the most upbeat, grateful. You have this joy of living, right? That is intoxicating. And what you've been through shows such resilience. And to come out of this thing completely mentally healthy is unusual. It's like, you're stellar, Gregg. You did great, man. Okay. You walked out of this thing. You got any trauma over it?
No.
Yeah. You wouldn't admit to it if you did. In fact, you wouldn't even recognize it. If you had it. Seriously. That's how buttoned down you are. I'm telling you, man, you remind me of my grandfather, and that's the highest compliment I can give anybody. Unbelievable, man. I think we're going to exit on that.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
That's right.
We're out of time. Please subscribe on YouTube, click the thumbs up, and leave a comment. Please subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify and leave a rating and a review. And share the We're Out of Time podcast with others you know who will get value out of it. See you next Tuesday.